Tom Jobe had just found out that he was a wizard, a being of magical power. He was going to a school that would teach him how to use that magical power for good. He was both excited and nervous. Excited because it bound to be a new experience full of adventure, but nervous because it was unknown territory for him. He has never been this far away from his family. Promised his mother he would write her every day and keep her informed. Tom had also never walked on a train before. Crossing the window next to his seat was next level, something he had never experienced. He figured that he would be having a lot of new experiences, and he hoped that he would be able to manage them as these new experiences came along. Hermione Granger had been carefully reading Hogwarts history, though the movement of the train made it tricky to concentrate. The countryside streaked past in flashes of green and gold, and she kept glancing up, curious about the other students. The compartment door slid open and Hermione looked up. "Hello," she said, keeping her voice calm and polite. "Are you a first year?" She watched him silently for a moment, noticing how new everything seemed to be to him. "I'm Hermione," she added, offering a small smile. "Hermione Granger is my first year too." Hermione returned to her book but kept an eye on him. "If you have any questions about Hogwarts, well, I've read a lot, so I might be able to help," she said, her tone a mix of eagerness and nervousness. Tom looked towards the girl who was now talking to him. Something about her felt warm and kind, though her hair was all over the place, and there seemed to be something about her teeth. But that wasn't for him to judge. When she offered to help, he relaxed a bit, receptive to a helping hand. "Yeah, I'm a first year," he finally replied. "I'm Tommy Jobe." He smiled shyly. "The professor who gave me my letter said there are 4 houses. I can't remember the names, but there are 4 of them, correct?" Hermione tilted her head slightly, regarding him with keen interest. "Yes, that's right," she said, her voice quick with enthusiasm. "There are 4 houses at Hogwarts: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Each student is sorted into one when they arrive." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and smiled faintly. "I suppose it can be a lot to remember at first. I've been trying to read up on all of the rules and history so I don't get completely lost." She paused for a moment, glancing down at her book, then back up. "What about you? Are you looking forward to the sorting?" Hermione's eyes flicked briefly around the compartment as it measured the space in the small world they were about to enter. "Hi, Hermione," she added again, as though reinforcing her presence. "Hermione Granger, first year, like you said. It's quite exciting, isn't it?" "It's just I've never been to a real school before. Preschool, sure, but my mom mostly homeschooled me." Tommy was doing his best not to let his nervousness show, but it was a lost task. He was a shy kid and it was taking an adjustment phase, which he had already been told would happen. "What's the point of having 4 houses?" Hermione's eyes lit up at his question, and then she leaned forward slightly, eager to explain. "Well," she began, "the houses are sort of like groups that students belong to while they're at Hogwarts. They help organize the students for lessons, fellowship, and activities, but it's not just about those sisters." She flipped the page in her book absent-mindedly, thinking quickly. "Each house also has its own qualities and values. Gryffindor is known for bravery, Hufflepuff for loyalty and patience, Ravenclaw for intelligence and learning, and Slytherin for ambition and resourcefulness." Hermione paused, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "It can be confusing at first," she admitted softly. "I mean, I've read about it a lot, but it's still different seeing it all in practice. The sorting is the part that really decides how fits each student best." She glanced at him, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "It's kind of exciting, isn't it? Knowing you'll have a place that suits who you are, even if you don't know exactly what that means yet." "What happens if you don't fit in any of them?" he asked nervously. Tom didn't really know what qualities he had. Of course, what 11-year-old did. Now he was afraid the sorting hat wouldn't be able to place him and he would be sent packing. He wondered if anyone else felt the same. Hermione blinked at the question, her brows knitting slightly in thought. I don't think that really happened," she said carefully. "The sorting hat is supposed to figure out which house suits each student best, even if you're not sure about your own qualities. It can see what fits you. I read that it even takes your potential into account." She tapped the edge of her book with her finger, thinking of how to explain it. "It's not just about what you are right now, but also who you might become. That's why some students are surprised at their sorting. They end up in a house they didn't expect, but it works for them." Hermione gave a small, reassuring smile. "I suppose it's a little like finding a place where you can grow. Even if you don't know exactly who you are yet, there's still a house that matches you." Those words reassured Tommy a little bit, and he felt easier about it. More curious now than nervous. "It really does all that?" Tom wasn't she, a magical hat that could raise your potential and who you would become. Sounds like he'll learn more about himself after this sorting than anything else. It excited him. Didn't he remember something that the professor said? I was told because of my blood size I won't be sorted into Slytherin, so that just leaves 3 options. Muggle-born, I think they called it? What a weird word. Muggle. Hermione's eyes widened slightly at his words, and she leaned forward a little, eager to explain. Oh, well, yes. Muggle-born just means that your parents aren't magical. It doesn't make you any less of a wizard, though, she said quickly, as it were he might misunderstand. She tapped her book thoughtfully. Most of the students at Hogwarts are either Muggle-born, half-blood, or pure-blood, but it doesn't matter for the sorting itself. The sorting hat looks at who you are, what you can become, not just your family history. Hermione's gaze flickered to the window for a moment, then back. Slytherin does have a reputation for family bloodlines, yes. But there are Muggle-borns in other houses, too. The hat doesn't only care about that. It really does try to place you where you can do your best. She smiled faintly and buzzed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. It's a little magical, yes, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? The way she spoke was so kind, so full of nodded. He could see her doing well at Hogwarts if she was already this good. Maybe a little jealous of him. He should have done more reading, but reading books weren't really his forte. Something he would have to get over if he wanted to do well in classes. His only teacher has been his mom, but he wouldn't have parent bodies to help him get ahead. Has the Muggle-born ever been sorted into Slytherin? He wasn't sure if he wanted to be sorted into that house if they valued blood status so much, but it sounded like it was possible. Hermione blinked at the crescent, thinking quickly. I think it's very well, she said carefully. Stories I've read mostly talk about Slytherin having students from magical families, but I've heard of exceptions. The Sorting Hat seemed to look at each student individually, so it wouldn't necessarily rule anyone out completely. She paused, adjusting her robe slightly as she considered her next words. It's not really about punishing anyone or keeping people out, she added softly. It's more about the qualities the house values and whether the hat thinks the student will fit best. That's why it can surprise people. You can see potential that even they don't know they have. Hermione glanced at him, a thoughtful expression on her face. I suppose that means you never really know what might happen after sorting. Even if the house has a reputation, the hat might shoot differently than anyone expects. Well, I'm excited now. I wonder what house I'll get. He could get Gryffindor, but he didn't really see himself as brave. Ravenclaw, but he didn't see himself as smart. Hufflepuff, maybe. He did think he was loyal at least. He wasn't sure about Slytherin, as he didn't see himself as ambitious. Like she said, the Sorting Hat could surprise him. What house are you hoping for? Hermione's eyes brightened at the question, and she clapped her hands together in front of her. Honestly, she said a little shyly, I really like Ravenclaw. She bit her lip thoughtfully. Not just because I like learning, although I do, but because I think it would suit the way I like to prepare and understand things. I like a house where I can really focus on my studies. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, glancing briefly out the window before looking back. Of course, I know this sort of half decides in the end, and it might have other ideas, but, well, it's nice to have a hope, isn't it? My gaze returned to a book for a moment, then flickered back to him, curious. Do you have any idea what size you might want? Tommy pondered on the crescent for a moment. I really don't know a lot about them outside of what you told me. It was an interesting and tough crescent. If he couldn't even rule out Slytherin, it was a tough call. And if the hat saw potential too, who knows what that was yet? I'm not good at evaluating myself. I'm not really ambitious, I don't think. And while I do get straight A's at home, my mom's a teacher, so I don't know. I haven't been put in a situation where I can figure out if I'm brave or not. Maybe Hufflepuff. I'm loyal to my friends. At least, I like to think so. Hermione tilted her head thoughtfully, her eyes narrowing slightly as she considered his words. Hufflepuff, she murmured, almost to herself as if weighing the idea. Then she looked back at him. That makes sense. Loyalty is definitely one of Hufflepuff's strongest traits. They also value patience and hard work. She brushed her strand of hair behind her ear and smiled faintly. I suppose it can be hard to trust yourself at first. Even I sometimes wonder if I'm exactly who I think I am. But that's why the Sorting Hat exists, isn't it? To figure those things out for us, even when we can't. Hermione's gaze flickered out the window for a moment, then returned. It's exciting in a way, don't you think? Not knowing exactly where you end up and knowing that there's a place that fits you? Oh, hard work? I don't know about all that. Tommy really thought he was kind of lazy. Mom usually had to direct him during classes, but maybe he was being too hard on himself. Oh well, he would find out when he got there. I hope we end up in the same house. You're really the only student I've met so far. I don't want to be somewhere where I don't know anybody. Hermione tilted her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. I suppose not everyone notices how hard they work at first, she said softly. Sometimes it's easy to see it once you're surrounded by other students in classes and everything Hogwarts throws at you. Her eyes brightened at his next comment. Oh, she said, a little flustered but genuinely pleased. I like that too. It can be a bit daunting to talk to someone new all alone. I think it's nice to know someone, even one person, on your first day. She had shut to her wolves and gave a small encouraging nod. We'll see where the sort of have decided to put us, but I think it's good to hope. The train suddenly sounded off and came to a full stop. They must have finally arrived. Tommy sat up and found his way to the exit where a large and hairy man was waiting for them, crying out, "First heels!" That was them. Tommy followed the group and the large man to a boat. Now he was nervous. He's never been on a boat before. He didn't know how to swim. What if it tilted over and he drowned? He shook the dart away. They came in a small room to the castle, and an older woman came and blazed at them with sword. When she was gone, the boy named Shaco started talking about Harry Potter, and the two exchanged words. Then the older woman came back and escorted them into the great hall. Tommy was taken aback. The ceiling was a sky and candles floated. There were 4 tables and a bunch of people sat at them. Orders shivering from the 2nd to 7th, representing all 4 houses. The woman started calling names. Hermione was then sorted to Gryffindor, and now he was hoping to be sorted to the same house. Finally, his name was called. Thomas Jobe! He hadn't been called Thomas in some time, but it was his legal name, so that might have been what was on file. Tommy swallowed and then walked up to the stool. He sat on it, and the woman placed the hat upon his head. Hermione watched for a breath as the sword hat was placed on his head. Her heart thumped a little in her chest, not from worry, sadly, but from curiosity. She had read so much about the sword hat, but seeing it in action, seeing someone else's face for the first time made it feel real. The whispers and murmurs of the others stood and faded slightly as she focused on him. And then, a voice. Not a real voice, but a sword hat speaking in his mind. Hermione couldn't hear the words, but she could see the small tilt of his head, the slight movement that betrayed his thoughts and feelings. Ravenclaw, the sword hat finally decided, and Hermione blinked. For a moment she felt pain. She had hoped they might end up in the same house, like she had said, but then she caught herself. Of course, it made sense. He had qualities the hat could see, qualities that would shine best in Ravenclaw, and that was okay. Really, it was. Hermione smiled to herself and stretching her robes. Well, she murmured quietly, almost to no one. It was like we just have to see each other in the corridors and then, in our classes, maybe I can hear about what Ravenclaw is like. She leaned back slightly in her seat, curiosity bright in her eyes, a mix of pride and anticipation. It would be interesting to see how he settles in. Ravenclaw suits him. I think he'll do very well there. Hermione Dark flicked briefly to the sword in itself, to the magic of it all. The castle seemed alive in a way it hadn't before, and she felt a thrill she could barely contain. Hogwarts was even bigger, strangely more wonderful than she had imagined, and now there were new people to meet, new friends to watch grow, including him. Tommy's heart sank. He had hoped to be sorted to the same house as Hermione. The Ravenclaw table shielded, and Tommy sat up once the hat was removed from his head and walked over there, looking over to Hermione with regret before sitting down at the table. People introducing themselves, patting him on the back. Our names he wouldn't remember by morning. He sighed. Maybe Ravenclaw was best for him. Maybe him and Hermione had different destinies. At least they would still see each other. Not all was lost. And blue suited him.